I mean, this gets back to the conversation we're having now. So much of the media conversation was Trump reverted to himself. Trump, started with you. And I was like, no kidding. What are you guys, dumb? Like, he's Trump. What did you think he was going to do? There is this sense in the media that he had to roll over and say uncle for it to be a success. I agree with Doug. If he hadn't brought up immigration and issues, I would have been like, who is that guy? What happened to him?
No, he had to do that.
Right. And I felt like I like Liz was kind of moved by, I was like, dude, if I had a bullet whiz by my head like he did, I loved, by the way, one of the things that I loved about the speech was when he brought the chart up. And Liz touched on this.
Yes.
But it was like he had these moments where he was joking and he's like, I didn't get to see this chart. Yeah. I was like,
it didn't go so well the last time. Brilliant. He's an amazing man.
And that, by the way, that wasn't in the prompter, right?
No. Well, so I had a friend who was there, and they said they kept having to stop the prompter because the president was going off script.
That's not a surprise.
The poor speechwriters. The poor speechwriters must have been sweating. Listen, I mean, he does seem profoundly changed by this shooting. And I say that not thinking that he required some huge transformation before, but it has brought out this existential element of him. He's had to face his own mortality. You don't come away from that unchanged unless you're sociopathic. And to see that, I mean, I was very touched by that. I have no idea what his personal relationship with God is, but it seems that he has really come face to face with his maker in a way that perhaps he never has before. And that's something that I'm glad that he revealed on stage, especially given, the fact that there's been some contention between this campaign, this go around, and the evangelical bloc. To see him reference God, to thank God, and to do it sincerely, not in a way that appeared to be pandering, I found to be very touching. The last comment I'll make about the length of the speech is the people that were maybe on the fence about voting for him probably only watched the first half of the speech anyway. People that aren't like we are, political nerds that are, crouching over our iPhones at 12:05 being like, are you going to finish soon? Like, come on, like, we got to go to bed here. Like, people gave up watching that after the important part anyway. And the reason that many of these independents vote against him is not because they disagree with him on policy. So I had no problem with the fact that he saved the policy for the last half. The suburban woman, for example, votes against him because they don't like that he's combative. They don't like that he, called Rosie O'Donnell names, that kind of thing. So he didn't really need he didn't need to recruit them with policy. He needed to recruit them with, hey, I'm human and this horrible injustice happened to me because of the political views that I hold. And I mean, I'm going to repeat what I said at the beginning. I think that's a very winning position and winning message for him.
Yeah, Liz, you just made the best point. I mean, the debate was over in 30 minutes. Okay, everybody talks about it going 90 minutes. The debate was over in 30 minutes. The talking heads had already made their assessment. Everybody was done. It was just like hearings on the Hill. The assessment's made in the first 3 to 4 questioners, and then everybody has to go and write their story. They can't. I mean, we have such a Red Bull on Red Bull mentality in the media and everywhere else that we got to go write something instead of just sitting there and watching it. And so you're exactly right. And I think you and Nan are both spot on. The ones who needed to hear the first 25 minutes, 20 minutes of that speech heard it, and then they went to bed.
I've gotten a lot of texts that were like, how did it end? I watched the beginning, and I'm like, it was great. But I think the point, Liz, I'm glad you brought up the religious piece of this because it was authentic the way he discussed it last night. I've always said, I don't want people, your relationship with God is between you and him. And for people to talk about, I always read these media stories. Trump's not religious. I don't know what he says at night to God. I don't know what he does when we're not there. Maybe he has profound discussions with him that he doesn't want to share. That's between him and God. But whatever it is, whatever it has been, I believe based on the speech last night that has changed. And sometimes that's what it takes is a moment. I listened to Don Jr. talk about it. And he said, I've never been a big spiritual guy, but something was at play. And it is those moments that reveal themselves. And frankly, the guy's a showman. There's no question about it. But what I saw last night was authentic and real.
Definitely. I agree.
Right, I mean, you can't pretend that sort of thing, even if you're a good actor, even if you're a good entertainer.
Right.
So, Doug, one of the things that I thought was interesting in terms of the reporting was Axios reported this on Thursday. It said Again and again at their convention this week, Republicans have rallied against a mysterious enemy responsible for many of Donald Trump's problem. And then they put the word they in quotation marks. And it says why it matters. To convention speakers, they are responsible for Trump's convictions in New York, his federal indictments, his multi-million-dollar fines, record illegal border crossings, and even attempts to assassinate the media. In Trump's MAGA world, exactly who they are usually isn't defined. And I was like, you tone deaf losers. I know who they are. It's you. Look in the mirror. You are part of the they. Maybe you have pronoun problems, but they is you and the left, right? I mean, I kind of read that and I thought to myself, holy smokes, you guys really don't get this. You're they. That I don't know, whatever your pronouns are, you are they. We don't like you.
Yeah, look, I mean, Liz made a comment earlier that she has problems with politicians, and look, I have problems with media personalities. I have a problem with media right now in general, because I have problems with all of us. Because frankly, this is what you get, and they're looking. I mean, okay, Axios knows exactly what the problem is. The lawfare that's going on. It's the open borders that they can't explain because they don't want to try and explain it. They want to right away the Laken Rileys and the other moms who've been killed, and they can't do that in so in rational ways. The really here, I'm going to throw this out. The media narrative has a real problem right now. Not just that Joe Biden is incompetent and frankly has a lot of mental foibles and also physical issues. Their problem is at this point is the narrative is now switched to where they are the party that is, fomenting a coup against a primary elected president that they're trying to get rid of because he had a bad debate night. And their only arguments against Donald Trump on the issues of economy, immigration, and foreign affairs, the people aren't buying. And so they are siding with Donald Trump on the fact, we shouldn't have an open border. They're siding with Donald Trump on, I got 20% inflation. I can't afford the groceries that I used to afford. And we don't like what's going on in Ukraine and Israel and other places. So they can't sell the policy narrative. So they were selling the democracy narrative. Now they have nothing like that to do. So now they're going to this amorphous kind of thing in which, they're just making up these issues. They're not making up the issues. The thing that got Donald Trump back to where he is at right now is the lawfare of the Biden administration, the Department of Justice, the district attorneys in New York and in Atlanta and other places. That is what brought this back because people saw a government they did not recognize.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, I've told this story before. After the 2016 election, Liz, I had this conversation with these senior executives from NBC, like the top people who said, hey, we missed it. We need to set up pop-up bureaus because we didn't see a lot of these issues that, their words, not mine, in flyover country. And I know that's so offensive to people who don't live in urban areas. They're not in flyover country. That's just, they're actually out there, the backbone of America. And yet here we are, almost 10 years later, and the same guys are like, who's they? Who's they? Like, they are the people who work every day in America. They are the people who are offended by how you discount hardworking Americans, church-going Americans, gun-owning Americans. This kind of goes off of what Doug said. I feel like that this is the problem. We have a corporate America, a Hollywood elite America, a media in America that literally, and in academia, and the list goes on, of people who despise and don't even acknowledge the majority, frankly, of America.
Yeah, I mean, I can define it for Axios if they want to know who the they is that we're talking about when we say they allowed the assassination attempt against President Trump. For the last 8 years, maybe 9 years now, we've had a media apparatus, corporate media, who has called Trump Hitler, called him a dictator, called him authoritarian, called him a threat to democracy.
A lot of people have tried to draw similarities between Mussolini and Hitler and the use of the terminology like vermin and the drive that those men had towards autocracy and dictatorship. The difference, though, I think makes Donald Trump even more dangerous, and that is he has no philosophy he believes in.
Told people, marginalized groups, that he was going to commit a genocide against them. They have simultaneously allowed in our streets violence, looting, arson, assaults on cops, and no accountability for the people who commit these crimes. They have told us that it is only a matter of time until, if we are a woman, a person of color, an LGBTQIA plus identifying person, that we will be killed. And then they act surprised when an assassination attempt occurs on the president. No, that is not an accident. That is not a coincidence. That is narrative grooming, so that some crazy person who has no self-control and no respect for the law does exactly what that shooter did on that roof outside of the rally. Simultaneously, Sean, they are the people who are propagating DEI. DEI is chaos. DEI is not about elevating women. It's not about elevating Black people into positions of power. It is about instilling chaos into our institutions. And what happens when chaos is introduced into our institutions? Tyranny and violence. So they are both directly responsible and indirectly responsible for what happened to President Trump. And thank God, I agree with President Trump. He was saved by the hand of God Almighty. But when we are saying they, make no mistake, we are very clear about who we mean.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.